Hello
Hello there.
there. Welcome back to another episode, the final episode of season 10 and a half of Star Wars in a Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli,
I'm Jacob.
and yeah, we're finishing up season 10 and a half. We're finishing up our little interlude into Star Wars Visions. We got four, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 Visions shorts we're talking about today. This is episode 84, if I hadn't already said that. Um, and yeah, I'm excited to get into these four, um, covering a wide swath of Star Wars stories. These four are not like, even though they're part of the same project in Star Wars Visions, they are as different as Star Wars stories can be while still being insanely Star Wars.
Yeah,
I think all
absolutely.
four of them. So yeah, we watched the specific shorts we watched are the other Empire era um shorts from Visions. Tatooine Rhapsody, Toby 1, Lop and Ochô, and Akakiri. So I believe that's two, 5, 8, and 9 of Vision Season 1. Is that correct?
I believe so. Not sure. That sounds
Two, two,
sounds
six,
about
eight,
right.
nine. 2, 6, 8,
Yeah,
9.
there we go. There we
Toby
go.
one's not 5, it's 6. Okay, I just looked it up. Yeah. So Jake, do you want to just get into this, or you have anything else to say?
Yeah, what do you no, I'm ready to rock. We got a bumpy road ahead, but it's going to be interesting to unpack it all.
So we're gonna start off with Tatooine Rhapsody, made by produced by Studio Colorado. Um, so there is so we start off with this Padawan, this Jedi Padawan named Jay, who's voiced by, in the English dub, who's voiced by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which I think is pretty cool. Um, and he's escaping Order 66. He survived the Purge, and he eventually runs into this band. And he becomes the lead singer of this band called the Star Waver. And they're a very successful band, but due to their bassist Gee's uh, past association with the Hutts, him being one himself, they get themselves chased a lot down by bounty hunters, including at one performance, none other than Temuera Morrison voiced Boba Fett. Fett chases them, but they manage to get away. They manage to get away from Fett, but then uh, Fett chases them down and does manage to get Gee to go back to the Hutts, who don't like the fact that he ditched their empire for music. Um, and Jay tries to stop Fett by igniting his lightsaber, but he's not in balance. He can't do it. Um, at what's supposed to be Gee's execution, it's where we find out that Jay and Starwaver have showed up there to give them one final concert, and the concert is so good that they're hired to be Jabba's official house band, and Gee's life is spared. Um, yeah, produced by Studio Colorado. Do you want to just get into this?
Yeah, absolutely. Where to start with this episode? Because this is a very this is a very interesting episode.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's
to
not your
say the
typical
least.
Star Wars short, but I
Yeah,
find it very endearing myself.
I did not find it endearing, unfortunately. I wish I could say I had the same reaction. Yeah, what are your thoughts on it? Where do you want to start? Anything that jumped out at you in this one?
Well, you know, I will just say this. I know I love, the freshness of Visions. I really do. I love that it's still the same themes and still some of the same objects and stuff like that. but it is a fresh take on Star Wars. But seeing the animation style of these studios and seeing characters you know and love is just awesome. Like I sat up when I saw Boba. Even I knew Boba Fett was coming, but I sat up when I saw him because I'm like, yeah, that feels like Star Wars to me. And Tem just sounded so good as Boba, and this was pre-Book of Boba that he did this. And I'm like, damn, I like this a lot.
Yeah, definitely a portent of things to come for sure. Yeah, personally, unfortunately, this one didn't really land for me. I mean, I guess I will start out. I'll try to give some positives. I don't know about you, Eli. We can definitely go into this. I love the idea of Star Wars, of there being Star Wars stories in all media forms that aren't just about the wars, the battles, the conquests, the killing, the shooting, the slicing, but that there is life and culture and creativity and passion and this whole other universe, and the violence is only one side of that. I think that's definitely something we don't see enough of in Star Wars. That being said, I just did not enjoy, for whatever reason, I just didn't enjoy the execution of this, unfortunately.
I can understand that. My thing is like the sort of like the power of music being a source of hope and like turning the tide of stuff. Like you wouldn't think of that as Star Wars, but like it's just somehow for me, I don't know, it just somehow works. It
Yeah,
just um yeah, I understand that sometimes the like this is so incredibly different. Like even though this does have Boba Fett and Jabba and the arena that the pod race is held in and Bib Fortuna, this is not your typical Star Wars story. This is very much the black sheep of Visions.
yeah,
Like, and I'm not saying that is a bad thing. I'm just saying like the other ones are very much about the Jedi and combat. You know, the
yeah,
duel, the twins, the Village
yeah.
Bride, Ninth Jedi,
At,
Toby One,
yeah. At the
Elder.
same, yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I just want to say it also feels like this one is the most. It is the most grounded in the Star Wars from an aesthetic and a world building perspective. It definitely feels by far the most grounded in the Star Wars, the classic Star Wars that we know
Yeah,
of all of these, I would say.
absolutely. Yeah, this one is very ground. Like a lot of them are very mystical, but this one is. You know, there is a Jedi in this one as the main character. There is a lightsaber, but we never tap into that mystical side. It's very much about making your way in the galaxy, getting your pay, doing your job.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I thought Gee being a not like awful hut was a really interesting twist on that species.
Yeah, I'm always very down for when they make a species that is usually either an evil species or a somewhat I guess you could say a somewhat less front and center species, when they give those characters from the species a little more breathing room. I'm really a fan of that. A good hut. Maybe we see a good Trandoshan somewhere. Maybe like a really,
Skier in the
yeah,
Hyperbolic.
like maybe what I really want is a really really super cool, competent, badass Ithorian, and know the guy that the guy that Cad Bane shoots in
Anka.
the yeah, that guy from the Clone Wars that Cad Bane shoots. He doesn't count. He
No,
does
but you
not
know who
count,
does
Disney.
count, Jacob? You know who does count? And Alden Diaz would kill me if I didn't say this because it's one of his glove shadows. Raron Karab from the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars.
That is true. That is true. I love that character. I love the Tartakovsky Clone Wars. And I was actually watching. Funnily enough, I was actually watching the Honest trailer for the Tartakovsky Clone Wars earlier today, um, just on a whim because that's idle on YouTube, and it really resonated with me. how they expressed enthusiasm for some of the side characters like Wolfman and the Ithorian, and that really resonated with me. So
Who's the
I know I'm
Wolfman
not alone in
Jedi?
that.
Now
I
I need
don't know
to.
who the Wolfman is, but he's freaking
Volvithmon. Volvithmon.
Wolfman. I mean, he's freaking badass, no matter who he is.
He's a
He's
wolf
freaking
Jedi.
badass.
And of
Yeah,
course we can't forget the immortal Shaggy.
yeah. I mean, a Wolf Jedi might even, I don't know. Maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I might like that idea even better than a Wookiee Jedi. I don't know. Hard to say.
I'm not
But
sure, but anyway. But yeah. Let's see what else. I also really love of course Jay during the chase has a bad feeling about this.
yeah,
You know, stuff like that really grounds it in Star Wars. I also just like really love the whole like Jay's lightsaber not igniting when they're gonna face Boba Fett. Like he just tries to turn it on, but he just can't.
yeah. There's definitely, I enjoyed kind of how they subverted the expectations, one might say, of that moment, and instead of the heroic Jedi igniting his lightsaber and standing up, they kind of turned that on its head, very similar to what happens with Ezra a couple of times in his visions with the Inquisitor. That was something that came to mind for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love, as much as I didn't care for the execution of it in terms of, I guess, just the animation style, the overall story, some of the voice acting, the music to me wasn't the best. It felt a little bit generic. As much as I could say all that, I really love the idea of being able to find value in your life as a Star Wars character in Star Wars. I really like how they're showing that there's value and meaning outside of trying to be the one to save the world, at least through being a warrior. And you just might end up, as it happens here, you just might end up doing something good regardless, through a form that isn't fighting.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. It's a really like it's such an offbeat one, but I think it really works, at least for me. I don't know but I don't know about you, but like the whole like when Guy is given up to the Hutts and Jay says I can't just abandon him. I'm like, oh yeah, this is classic Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
I can't give up
And
my
that's
friend.
actually, yeah, that's amazing. I didn't see the connection before, but yeah, he literally tries to face Boba Fett with his lightsaber, and his lightsaber doesn't turn on, but then he ends up bringing the house down with this with his concert that makes everyone go wild, makes Jabba go wild. So yeah, you never know. There you go.
Yeah, no, it's just a really really fun short. I really like it. It's just like I don't know. I think maybe because I'm a musician myself, like it just connected with me like that much more. But yeah, seeing Boba Fett's ship, seeing old Ben's hut. Did you see that shot of old Ben's hut?
Yeah,
Makes me
that
wonder
was
like
great.
exactly when this would have been set because at a certain timeline, Obi-Wan would have probably pulled a Nari on Jay, um, and tell him to like bury his past as a Jedi, and Jay did that, but he still managed to bring hope to the galaxy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I would say. I mean, what are your overall thoughts on this? How do you like this one?
It's not one of my favorites. It's not one of my least favorites. It's a fun one. It's fun. I like it a lot. I feel actually a lot about Tatooine Rhapsody like I do about Solo in my normal Star Wars rankings. It's fun. It has some good things to say. Not my favorite. Not my least favorite.
Yeah, I would definitely say. Unfortunately, I didn't like it, but it did have something very good to say. even if I found it borderline insufferable at times. So yeah, definitely not the worst thing in the world. Definitely not the worst thing in the world.
And in Jacob's camp, that is a glowing review. Um,
Unfortunately, yes, I am a bit of a Star Wars grump, as I have discovered about myself. But if we are going on to the episode TOB1,
yeah, Toby won.
we may find out that that is not always the case.
I think we're gonna flip on this one because
I think we're gonna flip on this one. I have a feeling because you already told me earlier that this was your least favorite of the batch.
Actually, that's not true.
Oh, you flipped again. Okay, never mind. We'll see. We'll see.
It's my second least favorite. The Science Saru ones don't work for me.
Okay then. Maybe we'll still have a shocking reversal of opinion where I like something more than you do.
Yeah.
But in any case, TOB1. In TOB1, there is this boy droid named TOB1. He is the creation of a Professor Mitaka. They live on a remote planet where Professor Mitaka is working with his droid creations to terraform the planet and bring it life. Toby-1, however, dreams of becoming a Jedi. So Mitaka tells him to find a Kyber crystal. While searching for the Kyber crystal, TOB1 turns on Mitaka's ship, thereby alerting what I believe is an Inquisitor to the presence of Mitaka on the planet. When the Inquisitor arrives, we find out that Mitaka is a Jedi. They fight. TOB1 hides on the instructions of Mitaka. However, Mitaka is killed. TOB1, however, resolves to continue Mitaka's life's work, continue his father's life's work, and terraform the planet. However, right as he finally succeeds and brings life to the planet, the Inquisitor returns to hunt him down, saying, "I will not allow you to become a threat." They fight, and midway through the fight, TOB1 has a vision in which Mitaka comes to him in this vision. He reveals that the Kyber crystal was within him all along, activating TOB1, or Toby now's, his full Jedi powers. He then defeats the Inquisitor. And that is that.
TOB1 is made by Science Saru, which also made Akakiri. But yeah, I want to hear your thoughts about this one, because this one is definitely the, like, if I could dissect one of these, I would probably go with this one, because this one is just, there's a lot of good in it for me, and there's just some stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah, so my thoughts on this, I think it started out, for me, it definitely started out a bit on the slow side. However, I really think it picked up. I think this actually was one of the better episodes for me, maybe perhaps one of the best that of all the visions that I've watched. I think just to go through things I like about it, obviously, as we discuss it, we can go through in further detail. But to sum it up, I think I really liked the animation style. It was very cool. It was very unique. I thought the action was very well done. It was a really interesting premise. I think some of the stories, a couple of the stories of Visions are pretty cliche. However, this one, definitely, the story felt very fresh. Definitely was never rolling my eyes or thinking, man, I've seen this one too many times before. I think the Vision scene is absolutely jaw-dropping. Yeah, I definitely think this was the best one that I've watched so far for those reasons.
Okay.
Also, I just like the idea of a droid dreaming of being a Jedi, and it's really cool also how
freaking course you do.
They kind of, in this, they kind of toe the line between droid and human, and you know, when does a robot become a person? And I mean, there's a whole nother discussion, especially within Star Wars, to be had about that. then that may take us too far off the rails, but that could be a very good discussion for another
It
time.
it could be a very good discussion, and it's that exact discussion that turns me off of this.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah. My thing is, I like this short a lot. I think it has some really interesting messages, and I think it executes its story very well. My brain cannot do the droid Jedi thing. Like, I really want to be able to, but my brain just can't do it. Like, you know, for me, the Force represents the Force represents all life in the universe, and droids obviously don't have life. And I'm not saying, by the way, there's an extrapolation of this where I'm saying, oh, the TOB1 writers don't understand Star Wars. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they have a different interpretation of Star Wars than I do, which is completely and utterly fine. Everyone does. No one's interpretations of Star Wars are exactly the same. That's what makes it special. I'm just not exactly sure if I agree with this one.
That's perfectly fair. I think also for me, part of enjoying these is being able to, I think, kick back a little bit in the knowledge that this doesn't have to tie in to everything. And I think watching it with the knowledge that it is just a little standalone thing just to be fun, I think definitely makes it a little bit more enjoyable, I would say.
Yeah, I understand that, and I think a lot of like there's a lot of good stuff in here. For me, like all my problems come down to the it's a droid Jedi thing. Like that's literally my only issue with it. But it's more than a bit glaring for me. But like I freaking like that they did an Inquisitor in Visions. Like yes, please. That Inquisitor looked great, and I loved seeing them. I'm gonna call him the 327th brother until they give me another canon name, because I'm gonna relish any opportunity to put 327 into Star Wars where I can.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic. The Inquisitor was fantastic. I again there was a there's a lot that I really do like about this. I will say, in keeping with some Visions traditions, one of the other droids that Mitaka keeps does say, "I have a bad feeling about this." Yeah, what I actually really think of is interesting about this one is how much it plays into that Jedi fantasy. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
we see at the beginning of the arc that I think this is very intentional on their part. That we see at the beginning of the story that the world that they're on has two suns.
Yeah.
And I think that very much plays into the, oh, I want to be that one day. I want to save the galaxy. I want to be a source of hope.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting, especially in a time when there's more and more kind of when there's more and more moral ambiguity being injected into Star Wars and a lot of popular movies and culture at large. It's very interesting to see that we have, it's very refreshing, I'd say, to see someone who has a really kind of rosy vision of the Jedi and what it means to be a Jedi. You know, you have so many people like Trace and Rafa Martez, for example, so many people who have that vision of the Jedi. That's really been pushed, you know, the perception of the Jedi by non-Jedi as they're these dangerous, mysterious sorcerers, or they're elitist, or you know, they don't care about the common people. It's really, among the way it's presented today, it's pretty unique, I would say, in Star Wars to have such a rosy outlook on the Jedi.
I think that's a good point. I feel like Toby 1 is very much the embodiment, like the expanded version of the boy to Mary Black at the end of Last Jedi, the
Yeah.
guy who looks up at the stars and dreams of being a Jedi himself. Like that, this feels very much like an extension of that.
Yeah.
But I actually don't know if you noticed this, but the Disney era Star Wars movie that they reference so much in this short is not Last Jedi, but indeed the one that came before. Did you notice how much they referenced Rogue One in this?
I didn't notice. Where were the references?
Well, Mitaka says, "I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me."
That's
As
true. Although we
he,
have seen that outside of Rogue One now.
yes, but like
To be fair,
it originated in
but
Rogue
yeah,
One.
that is fair. Yeah.
Also, did you notice the Inquisitor's TIE Fighter?
I did notice. Yes, I knew that design from somewhere.
It's a TIE
I
Reaper from
definitely
Rogue One.
yeah.
So I found it interesting that there were a bunch of Rogue One references, among other things, with this. I don't know, just very, very interesting, because Rogue One is not about the Force at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, you know what? I want to get into this. Let me ask you a few questions. Is Toby 1 Force sensitive? Is Toby 1 alive? What are the differences between droid sentience and human sentience?
Those are all very good questions, and I have to say, I think the answer is, does it really matter? That'd be my answer for all of them, to be honest, because we have this short, and we know that Visions is kind of a no holds barred, suspend disbelief, rule of cool kind of interpretation of the Star Wars universe. So I would kind of challenge, does that even matter?
Okay.
I mean, for the sake of it, let's take a stab at it. So
Yeah.
is Toby 1 Force sensitive? I can't recall specifically if they showed him like definitively using the Force. But I don't know. What do you think? Because obviously the Force energy field surrounds all living things. But there's also, the cosmic force, or the unifying force, which binds everything together on a much higher level. So you could argue that just because he is not alive doesn't mean that he isn't one of the luminous beings that Yoda describes. If he has consciousness, if he has feelings, if he has hopes and dreams, who's really to say?
I was thinking about actually that scene from Yoda in Empire, and one of the things he says, the Force connects everything, the tree, the ship, the rock. Now, notice something about two of those three. The ship and the rock aren't alive, but Yoda specifically says the Force connects through them. So I'm starting to. I mean, I believe that living things do have a heightened importance in the living force. But on the scale of the cosmic force, I think of all the crazy weird coincidences that have happened to C-3PO and R2-D2. And obviously, behind the scenes, most of them are for plot reasons. But in universe, you could wonder, is that the Force?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, to be fair, a rock definitely, to me at least, falls in a different, as much as I am not closing the door on saying that Toby is Force sensitive, or Toby 1 is Force sensitive. At the same time, a rock, I think that's something that's just naturally created, through natural process, through sedimentation, through metamorphic processes,
I could see your point there.
whatever it may be. And it feels a little bit different if it's something that's been, manufactured and put together part by part. Yeah. But the ship, yeah. And also, the way that the animation, the way that the art is done, I think, whether it's intentional or not, and I think it would I actually think it would be giving so little credit to say that it was unintentional, but I really think they really pushed the line and blurred the line in between droid and living being. You know, the way they portrayed him, the way they gave him so many soft lines, expressions. They portrayed him as one would portray a person.
Yeah.
Much closer to another living character than to C-3PO, R2-D2, K2SO, any droid that I can think of
Yeah.
that we've seen in Star Wars. So I think it's entirely possible. I think it would be very cool. And I think that's the great thing about Visions is that, you know, it's I don't want to say, yeah, it's kind of it's a safe way to try out new ideas for Star Wars.
This is a very much the most the short where the lines are the most blurred. And you know, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm saying if you like that kind of thing,
yeah,
I think that really depends on how much this short is going to work on for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit more hesitant on it, but it's not like I don't enjoy it. There's some really great stuff in this. Like I honestly applaud their move to kill Mitaka because I didn't think they were gonna do that. I hadn't watched this in a while, and I forgot that they killed him. I'm like, you know, that's gutsy.
I was surprised. I think it was a really good choice. You know, it really genuinely caught me by surprise because of the way this episode, you know, it felt so cute and soft and safe and borderline utopian at the beginning. To do that, it really took it to a different space.
And very like a young person's level, like
yeah,
like a YA level. But then they just straight up killed Mitaka, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah,
this took on a second meaning.
I love the I don't know if you caught this, but I can't remember. Shoot, I didn't write down exactly how Mitaka said it, but he did have pretty much his own version of the line "Adventure, excitement, a Jedi craves not these things."
I did catch that. I didn't write the exact line down, but I did catch that. Yeah,
that was very very cool. And yeah, overall, I mean, what did you think of the because you haven't really talked much about the visuals. What did you think of the animation style for this one?
I thought it was good. I wasn't like I know I think you particularly like it. I'm not like I don't think it's the best. Like I don't think it's maybe my favorite animation in Visions, but it's definitely not my least favorite. Like I guess I don't pay as much attention to the animation as unless it really stands out in something like The Village Bride or The Twins to me, but yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I really liked, you know, with a lot of these animations, you know, it felt very more on the kind of hard-edged, gritty, almost like rougher, violent feeling animation with the art style. So I really liked how it was very soft and it fit Star Wars. It filtered the Star Wars aesthetic really well, I thought, better than most of the Visions episodes did. I think, you know, we had that dreamlike opening scenes of Mitaka's house, the terraforming, the fight scenes I thought were very rich and captivating. And oh my gosh, I just have to gush about the Vision scene for a moment because I was absolutely jaw-dropping. Definitely, I don't know about you, Eli, but I definitely saw a bit of world between worlds in there in the scene when he's talking to Mitaka. I saw a bit of when Ezra, you know, when he finds his kyber crystal, it definitely evoked that for me. It was really well done. I genuinely just that episode made me sit up, or that scene kind of for me took this episode to a whole new level. And this episode, honestly, but yeah, I think to complain about a lack of interest in intricacy in the plot would be missing the point. Because because I think this episode is fantastic from a standpoint of asking the viewer some questions and giving them some eye candy along the way.
Yeah, I wasn't paying a ton of attention to it, but like I do remember it did feel very world between worldsy. Not just in this short, but I also feel like in one of the other shorts we're gonna talk to, there was some world between world parallel stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't really think I have much more to say about Toby 1. Do you have much more before we get to Lop and Ochô?
No, let's do Lop and Ochô. Let's get into it.
Lop and Ochô. In Lop and Ochô, the world of Tau is struggling to modernize. They have a bunch of resources on their planet, so the Empire invades and in exchange gives them the tools they need to modernize their society. During the takeover, shortly after the takeover, somebody who was enslaved, a young girl who was enslaved by the Galactic Empire, escapes. Her name is Lop, and she is adopted by this man named Yasaburo and his daughter Ochô, and she becomes a part of their clan and their family. We flash forward about 7 years into the future, and Yasaburo is growing more and more concerned about the Empire's power over not just the planet of Tau, but also their clan, and starts gathering up some people, very a la Saw Gerrera, to resist the Empire's occupation. The Empire catches winds of this and recruits his own daughter, Ochô, to try and talk him out of it. And Ochô tries to talk him out of it very unsuccessfully. But then Lop and Ochô are driving on a road towards an Imperial checkpoint, and Ochô chooses right then to betray Lop and her dad, all of her family, for the Empire, joining them. Lop manages to escape and goes back to her father, and tells him the news, and he gives her the family lightsaber. It's explained that a Jedi long ago visited the planet of Tau and left their lightsaber with one of Yasaburo's ancestors, and it's been passed down from generation to generation. And Yasaburo hands that down to Lop, and then he goes off to try and work things out with his daughter. That does not succeed. She manages to cut off his only good eye, so now he's permanently blind. But then Ochô and Lop duel. Lop saying that Ochô saying that Lop isn't even a part of the family and shouldn't get involved with it. And the duel ends with Ochô escaping onto an Imperial transport, and Lop once again viewing a transmission that they had played at the start of it, that was young Ochô saying what a nice family they would be. And now I'm crying. Lop and Ochô is made by Geno Studio. I gotta admit this to you. I forgot how much I love this one. Like, it's so good. It just works for me. I really do love this.
I wish I could say I love this one.
Oh my god, are you kidding me?
I really didn't enjoy this one. It wasn't all bad. I thought I loved the message. Obviously found family. It's a huge message in Star Wars.
Inheritance has nothing to do with blood.
Yeah.
By the way,
that was the part that I liked.
Hey, all you anti-9 stands, inheritance has nothing to do with blood. Sorry, need to say that.
It's something us Star Wars podcasters can't seem to stop talking about. I thought, to say something positive off the bat, the animation. I know I'm a sucker for background scene, the background shots, the environmental shots, that watercolor in the background, absolutely gorgeous, rich, downright jaw dropping. But unfortunately, that was one of the only things that I could find to like about it. I just thought it was so much drama, so little substance aside from the little found family bit. And the fight scenes were good too, to be fair. I don't know. I'll hand it over to you for now. Eli. What do you want to say?
You're
What
going
have
down a
you got
path
for
I
us?
can't follow.
And
Uh,
everything is now returned to normal in a
yep.
galaxy. Everything is now
We have
returned to the way it should be.
down
The
is now
natural
down and up is back to up. So we're
order
back to
has been
regular.
restored. Order has been restored.
No, I like my thing is I think the found family stuff in this works so incredibly well.
I think he does as well.
And I love the. I also just love, honestly. I think, Ocho has a lot of anger in her, and she does want to protect her family. But I think that Yasaburo, I think it's a little overlooked in this because I really do think he wanted the best for his family. I think he is one of the better fathers we're seeing, one of the better parents we're seeing in Star Wars. Again, given parents in Star Wars not saying much, but I really appreciated. I just felt like a lot of like. I thought the voice actors for Lop and Ocho especially just killed the darn story. Um, and I love that, like, very much, and this is something we'll get into with Akakiri as well, that Ocho, in trying to protect her family, tears it apart. She goes so far to try and protect her family, so far to do what she thinks is right, that she ends up making things more wrong. That's a very, very Star Wars story to me.
Yeah, it
Um,
absolutely is. And I think the bit about progress is interesting, as well. The argument about progress over progress over everything, progress over keeping things the way they have been. Is progress worth it when it comes at the expense of the health and well-being of the world? It's an interesting question.
Yeah. I also really like the idea with the found family aspect. I also just loved, like, again, the found family, Yusaburo and Lop. I mean, I guess Lop and Ocho as well, but like that's a different story. Stays together, but the blood family, Yusaburo and Ocho, splits apart. And I think that raises a lot of really interesting conversations about, you know, Yusaburo apologizes to Lop. Uh, I don't know if you remember this in the middle, saying, "I'm sorry if it ever looked like I preferred Ocho over you."
Yeah, that was
And yet
definitely a touching moment. I can't lie.
Ocho, and yet she's the one who leaves.
Yeah,
It in the typical scenario, what you'd think would happen is Lop would leave, but no, Ocho is the one who leaves. And I think it's really interesting to, you know, I think there's a really interesting idea that even though Isaburo's love for his daughter Ocho is unconditional, and I truly believe the same is true for Ocho to her father, though maybe not by the end. I'm not sure. Um, I think there's an interesting message that you have to, even like there is a very much like an inheritance is just as good as blood with this story, but there's also like blood doesn't fix everything. Just having a blood relationship, sister, father, whatever, doesn't fix everything. you still need to work to maintain your relationships.
Yeah,
Blood
absolutely.
isn't an end all be all. And I think that's a really interesting flip side of the found family message that Star Wars often sells. And I really like that. There's a lot of like, I also love the stuff about lightsaber inheritance because I just find it so interesting. Like, when Ocho tells Lop she shouldn't even have the lightsaber because she's not really officially a part of the family. Um, it reminds me of Kylo in Force Awakens. That lightsaber belongs to me. Um, uh, with Finn, and he definitely feels a family importance to that lightsaber. But should he have it? Should he not?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's really interesting.
I love the idea of a family lightsaber too, because it totally kind of it flips around, the idea of the Jedi as this organization that doesn't, even if they're not Jedi themselves who have the lightsaber, the Jedi not being, being no attachment, no family, train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. All of a sudden, this becomes a symbol of familial bonds being passed down from generation to generation. It's almost like the dark saber. It really
Yeah,
is like the dark saber, actually.
yeah. I really like the. I really do like the emphasis on family and how important the bonds of family are in this. I like the tradition and the family, how that is very important. I feel like that is a very Japanese cultural message, and I think it's a really interesting one. Being raised not in that kind of culture myself, I think it's heartwarming to see their emphasis on that.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, do you have any other thoughts? Or can I give my closing?
I think I might have a few. I actually really
All right,
do
go
like.
for it. For it.
I really do like the fact that is one of those classic Empire rebellion stories. Like if you break it down to its simplest part, it's a rebellion Empire story, and it's a father versus child story, which are both classically Star Wars, and it flips the father child relationship on its head because I would argue that Yasaburo is viewed as the good guy in this, as opposed to Luke and
Yeah.
Vader. I mean, I guess Han and Kylo also broke the mold, and Leia and Kylo in the sequel trilogy. But we're used to the child having to save the father or the parent from their long gone ways, but now it's the parent having to save the child from their own mistakes, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I think for me, it wasn't all bad. Maybe I was a little harsh. I definitely didn't enjoy it very much. I thought it was quite, I don't know, it felt a little overblown, um, for what it was, but there was some nice messaging in there. Obviously, it was gorgeously done. Did you notice that Lop's eye hologram had like a carrot insignia on the side? Did you notice that?
I didn't, but that's funny.
Just gonna
Um,
say that's like, that felt like a very, what's the name of the green bunny from early Star Wars
Jackson.
comics? Jackson. That
Yeah.
that felt like a very Jackson-y type of touch to
Yeah.
me. I thought that was pretty funny. Um,
I
I
I
think. Start. Go ahead.
I was also gonna say I love also Yasaburo says Dank Ferric in the
He does say
in
Dank
the
Ferric.
short,
That was pretty cool.
and which is really cool when you think of how soon this because Mandalorian was 2019, and they had enough time between then and 2021 to put in Dank Ferric. Like I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome. Um, I think for me, ultimately, the thing that was the undoing of this episode is it really didn't feel like Star Wars. I think a lot of the Visions episodes, they toe this line of is it Star Wars or not, is it Star Wars? Is it Star Wars that's filtered through something else, or that's being filtered through a style and an ethos that isn't traditionally associated with Star Wars? Or is it something else being filtered through Star Wars? And to me, it felt too much like the latter, where although it was undeniably gorgeous and there were a lot of cool moments, to me, it felt like, how do I say this? How do I put this? It felt like it was more something else with a veneer of Star Wars on it, rather than a true blue Star Wars story, if that makes sense. That's not to say it's bad.
And on to Akakiri.
It just wasn't what I was hoping for. Okay.
No, I'm joking. No, but I think I like this a lot more than you, and that's totally fine. We have different Star Wars tastes, as has been established in all 84 of these goddarn episodes we've done.
Yes, as has been established.
But no, I really do love it. I actually disagree with it still feels very Star Wars to me. It has those redemption choices, family, all those great themes that are at the heart of, especially the original trilogy. I feel like,
yeah.
But do we want to go on to Akakiri?
Akakiri, let's get it.
Were you gonna do it, or do you want me to do it?
I can try.
Go ahead.
Or if you want to do it.
No, I don't want to.
So, Akakiri follows the story of a Jedi named Tsubaki. Tsubaki crash lands on an unknown planet. He fights off these unknown alien bandits who are coming to plunder the ship. However, he collapses from a painful Force vision. He awakens in a cave to find Princess Misa. He reveals that he came to the planet. He came following an attack against Misa's father to aid Misa in defeating Masago, who is a Sith Lord hiding among the royal family of this planet. Misa and Tsubaki then begin their travels back to the palace, accompanied by their two guides. Misa is now, however, in exile, so they need the guides to find a safe route back. Tsubaki, when they are surrounded in the mountains, discovers a path, but the guides say that the path is the place of the gods, saying that those who enter do not return. However, they are persuaded to enter for an extra 500 credits tacked onto their pay. One of the guides gets lost, but Tsubaki finds him, and the group reaches their destination. Tsubaki, however, at this point suffers from another Force vision. The next day, Tsubaki and Misa, they find their way into the palace. They share a quiet moment. There's a flashback scene. However, Masago, the Sith Lord who now rules the planet, interrupts, and she fights Tsubaki. They have a lightsaber duel, and Masago tortures Tsubaki using the dark side and tries to get him to join her. And throughout all this, Tsubaki is flashing back to a conversation with his master. But in the vision, or not in the vision, Masago sends masked warriors at him. He defeats these warriors. However, he unmasks the final warrior and finds out that it is actually Misa, who is now dead, and he is responsible. So he takes his role as Masago's apprentice, with the power to to save Misa from death granted in return. And then Tsubaki leaves with his new master.
So this is made by Science Saru.
Yeah.
The same studio that did Toby 1. Do you want to start with this one? I don't know if I should start with this one because...
Yeah, I'll start. Okay, so I honestly wasn't a big fan of this episode, I have to say.
Yeah, me neither.
Definitely not my favorite of the Science Star episodes. Again, I feel like the problem is that this episode feels a bit more of Star Wars ideas taken as inspiration, as a seedling for something else, rather than other creators kind of contributing to Star Wars. No, that's not right. I just think it strays a bit too far again in places. But again, the animation is gorgeous, and it's interesting how even within Science Saru, the two episodes obviously have completely different aesthetics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Toby, very brightly colored, soft, kind of comforting. This episode, very, very bleak, dark, grimy, a lot of dark grays, browns, and reds in the palette. So it's very cool to see how different it is. I will say that.
Am I going to be the first to mention this one?
Since I don't know immediately what you're talking about, you may well be.
What the fuck is up with the pacing of this short?
I think the pacing of a lot of these is the problem, and I think...
it bothers me in Akakiri more than any other short. Because all the exciting stuff happens in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, that is true. That is when the climax definitely is. I think for a lot of the shorts, I try to overlook the pacing because, hey, they have to pack a whole story into the 15, 20 minutes. And a lot of these, I think, are really meant to be a bit of a romp. More than anything else. But I definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, because I don't know. I just feel like I get the themes about temptation to the dark side. I think they're great. But I feel like it all happens a bit too fast. I feel like he goes from Jedi to Sith just a little too quickly. I don't know what it is. I think Tsubaki is an interesting character. I think Masago is an interesting character. I think they're all interesting characters. I don't really understand what the point of those two guards at the beginning was for the story. Like, I don't really understand why they were there, what they were trying to tell us about the story. I don't really understand why a lot of that stuff through the mountains was there. It felt very ancillary.
Yeah, I think it definitely felt like it lost focus.
Yeah.
At times. But I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, just considering how much time and how much wiggle room these episodes have, which is not much. But yeah, this definitely just wasn't my favorite episode. I think obviously, temptation to the dark side, always a cool theme to explore. But what they did here, the twist at the end was cool. I can't deny it, but it just felt rudimentary compared to some of the explorations that we've seen. And I really do think that they could have done, even with the short time and constraints that they had, I really think they could have done just a bit more.
The Village Bride was a full 5 minutes longer than this. I'm not saying they needed 5 minutes. I'm saying I think maybe give 2 more minutes at the end to detail Tsubaki's turn. And I think it gets a little better. I really do.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Akakiri is 15 minutes. TOB1 is also 15 minutes. And I think that one TOB1 as a story feels far fuller and more well-rounded. And so does even though I don't like it very much, so does Tatooine Rhapsody even,
Frankly,
which is
so
also
Lop and
15 minutes
Ochô.
long.
Or
Isn't
maybe
that
not.
one? That was 22 minutes long. That's the
Oh,
longest.
okay.
That's
Okay.
actually the
Well,
no. Sorry, the Ninth Jedi is the longest, but yeah, it's the second longest. Second
yeah.
longest.
I feel like a lot of them feel more focused than this one. I feel like there's just some stuff with the pacing that doesn't work for me. Again, I love the Samurai Jedi stuff. I love like you know, a lot of these are very much. I feel like a lot of these very much are Lop and Ochô feels this way. Um, Toby one feel like nods to the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And this is a very much a nod to the prequel trilogy, which
Yeah,
is
I can see
really
that. I can see
which
that.
is which I think is really cool because I think that I like the generational thing from Star Wars. I like that there are people who think of the prequels the way that some people think of the originals. Like I like that I love that there's some people born in the 70s and 80s who the originals are their holy grail, and then in the 90s and early 2000s the prequels are that, and now born in like the early mid 2000s, there's the sequels are where they're at, and I think it's really cool to see those generational, like people taking those things from the generation of Star Wars that they love and they appreciate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I was also thinking about this. I don't know why I'm willing to suspend more disbelief on this one than Toby one. I just feel like I kind of am, but like I think in a different story, the whole like bringing her back to life from death thing with that Tsubaki does would bother me a bit more, because like she was clearly already dead. It's not like she was dying. No, she was dead. But again, I think it would have bothered me more in maybe other stories. But I don't know. It felt like very much a like the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
It's definitely an interesting episode. No, yeah, I definitely agree with what you said about the generational thing. I think a lot of these episodes to me really are very redolent of the originals, because of those ones being the closest, the most closely kind of inspired and taken from some of the great samurai movies. But yeah, absolutely, the prequel trilogy I think um, plays a big role here, with the temptation and the fall into darkness, where the originals are more obviously about the rise and return to the light.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I don't know. I just feel like this one's the most mixed bag for me.
Yeah, it definitely is a mixed bag for me. Definitely is a mixed bag for me as well.
Yeah, I wish I could say I like this one more, um, but no, there was some really interesting prequel allegories here. And there was some stuff I want to be completely clear. The Force visions I thought were very well executed. The general dark side stuff I thought was very well executed. There is a lot of stuff that I really like in this. I think Tsubaki is a very good character. Um, Jacob, before we end this episode, I want to ask how you would rank the 6 episodes we've covered over the last two, the 6 shorts.
How would I rank the 6 episodes? That is a very good question. I think at the number one spot, I would have to say TOB1 for sure. I really enjoyed that episode a lot. Gosh, I think it's a big drop off from there. But I think then number two I think I would have to say The Village Bride. Number 3, I would say The Elder. Number 4 would be, see, now to the bottom 3, I'm torn again. Let's see, yeah, 1, 2, 1. Number 2, The Village Bride. Number 3, The Elder. Number 4, I would say, screw it, I'm going with a Lop and Ochô, number 4, Akakiri, number 5, and unfortunately Tatooine Rhapsody in 6th. Although they all had some redeeming qualities, and I never want to make this more serious than it has to be. Those are just the ones that didn't really do it for me.
Yeah, I get it. Some Star Wars speaks to people differently than others. It's totally natural. Mine probably would go number 1, The Elder, number 2, The Village Bride, number 3, Lop and Ochô, number 4, Tatooine Rhapsody, number 5, Toby 1, and number 6, Akakiri. I know what I gotta say. I really love the lightsabers. I really do. I love the Jedi stuff and the force sensitive human. No offense, Toby 1. Maybe a little bit of offense, Toby 1. Stuff. Elder and Village Bride and Lop and Ochô. I really love those stories that are focused on those Jedi-esque characters in a very, nobody could have seen that coming from me, really.
Yeah. So it's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be it. For this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. What are we doing next week? What are we doing next week? Next week, actually, I wanted to talk to you about this, Jacob. You're not gonna be in. No, wait, you are gonna be in town. No, wait, you're not gonna be in town. Shit. Oh yeah. Nope, never mind. I know what it is. Next week, I'm very excited. Next week, first of all, we hope you all enjoyed Epic Confrontation 3, Jared versus Alden. We're recording this on a Monday. It's going to come out this Wednesday. Very fun match. Congratulations to Alden Diaz on winning that match. Also announced in that session is that Epic Confrontation 4 is coming sooner rather than later. We're doing Brian and Mark from Pink Milk versus M and Chase from Pink Milk.
So excited.
Very excited for that. That's going to be out August 9th. We're not going to release a weekly episode for the next one. We're just going to have the Epic Confrontation be our weekly release. It'll release a few days after Friday, but trust me, you'll want to see it. It's going to be great. We have not recorded it yet, but I'm so very excited for it. Trying to think what else. But until then, follow us on Twitter at InAGalaxyPod, Instagram at Star Wars in a Galaxy. Our trivia Star Wars account is at InAGalaxy Trivia. My personal account is at OchiFan327. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever you listen to your podcasts, we will be there. If we're not, email us, swinagalaxy@gmail.com. Leave us a 5-star rating review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really does help with our visibility. And until next time, may the Force be with you. Always.